Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Rachel Chateau, and I am the editor-in-chief of Pride.com, which is how I came to meet the amazing women that you are here to see today. I'm also... Yes, correct. I'm also so excited to be talking about their incredibly moving new project. It is inspiring as a queer kid in the 90s. It's very aspirational. And that, of course, I'm talking about their new graphic novel, Junior High. And audiobook, that's important to note. And it features the artwork of Eisner Award winner Tilly Walden. Junior High is a lightly fictionalized and modernized take on their coming of age. It's an exploration of those oh so awkward years before high school that are also incredibly transformative. In it, they share a story of growing up. They share a story of coming out, puberty woes, yes, been there, and finding themselves as individuals, as well as discovering their greatest passion, which is making music together. It is charming, it is relatable, it is, like I said, moving and aspirational for a nerd like me, and I cannot wait to hear more about it from the women who wrote it and who lived it, and of course, that is the amazing Tegan and Sara Quinn.
Very excited to be here.
So, you know we love an origin story. You gotta ask. I'm sure no one has asked you this before, so I'm gonna break the trend here and ask how you decided to go, how this came about and what made you decide to go further into your past and tell more of your story in this.
So in 2018, just a little history for you, Sarah and I, we got off the road and we decided we wanted to work on a few creative projects that were not music related. And so we went out and we pitched a memoir called High School. At the time that we did that, we ended up partnering with FSG, and their kids department came to us, and that division said, would you guys be interested after you're done high school in doing a book for a younger audience, and so we pitched Junior High. We did not know at the time that we were going to lightly fictionalize it, so I like putting this part of the story in, which was that 2 years after we did the deal was when we actually started to work on Junior High, and I put together a PowerPoint presentation.
Sexy.
Yeah, exactly. About Junior High and what we sort of imagined writing about, and in it I reflected on all of the honest things that happened to us in Junior High. Which, if you've read High School, you know that we did drugs, we skipped school, we were little turds, but we were. We also pulled it together, had an amazing group of friends, had amazing parents, had this bond with each other, and then ended up becoming musicians. So the book is sort of, it's got a sweet ending, it's got a kind of redemption hero story in it. With Junior High, I was just told the real story. We moved to a really tough neighborhood, we went to a really rough school, there were gangs and drugs and sex. We were tormented and bullied, and we took this meeting with the publisher, and they were like, no, that's not what we want. And so at that point, they kind of freed us up to just begin fictionalizing our story and use more of the elements from high school of Sarah and I finding our voices, discovering our sexuality, starting a band, the family elements, to tell a different story.
I just want to say that I don't know if any of you have seen that TV show Euphoria. But when I was watching Euphoria, I would often turn to my partner and I would say, okay, you think that's crazy? In Junior High, this one time, this girl, and Junior High was wild. So this is it's lightly fictionalized, and it's a softened story, and our mom is so proud of it because she was very conflicted and upset by high school. So it's really made our mom proud.
I bet.
Please continue.
Okay, so two important distinctions about this very specific time in our life. One, these are some of the most important seminal experiences of our specific life. within, and this is truly how we pitched.
You're talking like getting a bra.
Not just getting a bra, but like, like
Seminal
experiences, meaning like when you start to figure out like who you really are, who you're gonna be in the future. And that information, at least in our case, we are figuring that out for ourselves first, right? Like we're figuring out, oh my God, I'm a twin, but geez, I kind of am having my own experience for the first time. I'm individuating. I'm thinking about how I want things for myself and not just for me and Tegan, the entity. I'm also figuring out that I like girls. And like, I think the sexuality piece is so important because I think it heightened for me all of the experiences and the friendships and relationships that I was having in my early life in a way that maybe is a little bit uncommon for the average straight person, for example, or someone who is maybe not in touch with their sexuality just yet and isn't having those really visceral connections. And then I think music. I mean, to just, it sort of is a bit of a like woo-woo way to put it, but to just pick up a guitar and realize like we can write songs, and not only can we write songs, but we pick up a guitar and we write our first song and people like it. I mean, like, they just, I could feel that energy, and it's
So what you're saying is you're able to remember all that because it was so...
Yes, thank you for summarizing. But the point, I think like the reason why I can't remember and you can't remember what happened yesterday is because nothing really happened, of importance, but or at least for me.
Oh my God, we went for dinner together when we got to
Well,
San Diego. It was a beautiful meal.
You can't even know how many millions of meals I've had with Tegan. They all start to blur. But yeah, I think that these stories are just they're so ingrained in us. And then also all these kids that we write about in junior high and actually in high school, we're still friends with them. These are our core friends. This is our central group of friends, and all we do is get together. This is 20 now. I mean, this is 1993, 1994 that we were in junior high. We still tell these stories over and over again. Nothing gives us more pleasure than to tell the same stories over and over and over again. So these details have just been like, they've just been like pummeled into our memory.
I will also add, and maybe it's not this way for everyone, but certainly I think for Sara and I, like something like getting our first bra or getting our period or having our first relationships, they really stick out too because we were quite boyish and, we were quite awkward and body conscious. And so when we got to write about it for the book, I enjoyed those days so much because now it's just funny to me. But like at the time, my God, like getting a bra, like when the chapter when we go, like bras is my favorite chapter from the book, but when we go with my mom to the department store to get the bras, and we're just like
being walking the plank or something,
Like we're so like, and Tilly just captured it so beautifully. Like I think also because Tilly is queer and kind of was a tomboy too, really captured those moments where we were doing overtly what were feminine things in our minds so beautifully in the pages, and it was really cathartic and funny, like laugh out loud funny for me to describe in the script us tailing behind my mom, and my mom was so feminine and like had a huge perm and like she had gotten twin girls. I mean, it was like a dream. My mom describes that she never wanted to do anything in her life except for be a mom, and then she got twin girls, and then we basically turned 5, we're like chop all our hair off, and then we called each other brother for a while. And then she loved to shop and she loved clothes, and she would take us to the department store, and she was like, it was awful. It was like I had 2 of your dad behind me. You just like, you just like flop your hands against the clothes and be like, whatever, I don't care. So going with her to get a bra, very, very, very nightmarish. Very nightmarish, because it's like the lady comes in the room with you and has to look at you, and it's like no one's seen you naked in years. It's like, the whole thing. But we somehow, I think, managed to make it funny and hopefully not too traumatizing.
So you brought up Tilly, and I do think she is almost another character in this because her incredible art style and use of color. And I would love to know, first of all, how that collaboration came together and how you guys talked about what you wanted the book to look like, to represent you.
So this was a really unique collaboration in that when we're making music, we often are the ones that we sort of have like a list of people that we'll be interested in working with. That can be like from like co-producers to musicians to other writers. In this situation, we had made an initial list of what comics and graphic novels inspire us as a sort of way to, I think, give a sense of the kind of voice and the sort of art that inspires us. And then from that list, our publisher essentially gave us a short list of people they thought would
Actually
be
just
good
wrote
covers.
about this for our Substack. It's gonna come if you're not subscribed to our Substack, you should be. Lots of like shenanigans like this happen over there. But but I actually got the actual emails, and so one of our editors emailed us about Tilly, and we both like flipped out because she'd been on our list, and so they reached out, and a month later wrote us and said, okay, Tilly's on board, she wants to do it, the deal is done. And then Sarah and I emailed her, so we never spoke to her.
No.
Wow.
It was a bit of an arranged creative marriage, if you will. And it's funny to hear Tilly. By the way, Tilly is like a delight. Like, we would invite her into our band in like a heartbeat. She is so clever, she's so gifted, she has such empathy and warmth. She's been a total dream collaborator. And she would totally be here, but she's about to have a baby. So rude. Priorities, Tilly, priorities. No, she's such a delight. But it's really funny to hear her retelling, because she said that she wanted to do the project before she even knew what the project was. Like, she was like, someone asked her, "Do you want to work with Tegan and Sara?" And she said yes. And then when she was getting the script for the book, which is how we collaborated, we wrote a script, we sent it to her, she drew it. She was like, I hope I signed up for something that I actually want to do. You know, she really, name recognition is a lot in our world. But I will say that the one piece of, I guess, like shared drawing that she did with us was she essentially made like a cast of characters for us. So it was like a one pager of like, I wish we had it.
It's on the Substack, and it's coming out next week.
Okay, great. It's so good.
Our Substack is free, but you can pay $6 a
Wow,
month.
I didn't know this was going to be such a brand pitch
Sorry.
for Substack.
No,
Holy shit.
because I was curious about all this too. I was like, oh yeah, how did we like initially talk with Tilly? And then I came across the character sketch,
It's
and
so
our emails
amazing.
back are like, oh my god.
I think it was one of the most touching things, because all she really had, we hadn't even sent her photographs of anyone. It was really just based on our descriptions in the script. And she sent these just like beautiful, beautiful, thoughtful drawings of our friends and our parents and what I refer to as little Tegan and Sara. And it was so touching for me to see how she imagined these characters. And that was when we really, really started to get excited about working together.
But your question about
Colors.
well, yeah, or just like, you know, the conversation between us and Tilly. The truth is that this wasn't our world, so we didn't give Tilly any boundaries or rules. You know, we did apparently give her the biggest script she'd ever received with
But by biggest, you mean longest.
just so much detail. But she also said that she enjoyed how much detail we gave, because for her, she said this was a really fun book for her to do because she didn't have to come up with all of those details herself. So we were really, really confident based on our script that she would capture the world. And from the first panels that she sent, it was like she nailed it, you know?
Yeah. I love the colors because you each have assigned colors, and then those colors together create the purple palette. Do you think some of that is the fact that she also is a twin? That there's just sort of this like language that you share?
Absolutely. And she talks so eloquently about how, you know, making sure that the little Tegan and Sara are so individual. Like she didn't want us to feel like we were interchangeable in the book, and that's
even how she draws. You can see this panel that's up on the left side and the bottom. Sarah's on the left, and her closet is so organized, and mine is really messy because we described me as being a little more thrown together and messy. I'm kind of chaos, and Sarah's very linear. So throughout the book, you always see Sara looking a little more put together than me, and like there's these charming little elements that I think as a twin, she was aware that individuating us was super important.
She also added these beautiful sections in between each chapter where the twins are, you know, they come out of the sort of story and into this kind of interior space where they're, you know, communicating some of their bigger feelings and emotions. And that was really her device. She really she ran with that as a way to, I guess, get into the sort of like interior space and internal dialogue that was happening that wasn't in our gigantic script. And that was probably one of the most beautiful, happy additions. Like when we saw her first initial draft of the book, these little beautiful sections, to me, because they were her idea, and often they were even her words. Like initially the dialogue in those sections was what she specifically took from the story and wanted to add. And I just thought, like, oh my God, Tilly gets us more than any therapist I've ever had. Like, and that is a lot, you guys, because I've had a lot of therapists, I've spent a lot of money on it, and I was like, should have had Tilly, like from the very beginning.
Amazing. So as I said, it's not just a graphic novel, there's also an audiobook coming, which is very, very cool. And I would love to know for you guys how the experience of recording that was and kind of reliving your story in a totally new medium.
So very late in the game, we brought up in a meeting about the release of the book, an audio version of the book, because we'd done one for high school and we'd read it, and we had woven in our actual demos from when we were in high school. And so it's a really cool audio experience for anyone who's read the book who hasn't listened to the audiobook. It's really fun. So we wanted to do something similar with junior high. So it just came out this week. So it's a little bit after the book, because I mean, it's just, I think, smart to separate the two, but I think it was because we came up with it pretty late in the game. But we had no idea how it would be done. Like, again, this is a whole new world for us. It was similar to when we sat down to write the graphic novel. We were like, how do you write a graphic novel? And it's like, oh, a script. So how do you write a script? So the audio version, it was, for us, we had no ideas. We had no idea how it was done. We have an amazing team, of course, that's their job. But you adapt the book. You get a director who adapts the book and creates a script, and then you cast it. So there was a whole casting process, which was so fun. And then they created narration for Sara and I. Mm-hmm. And so all of that was done remotely, which is really cool. And then there are sound effects and music. Sara went in the studio and recorded a version of the song that Tegan and Sara write in the book. So you hear that in the audio version. And then there's a really amazing interview between Sara and I and Tilly that we recorded as well. So it's a real immersive experience. A bunch of adults who I had dinner with the other night.
Is that pretty uncommon for you to get to go out with adults and have dinner? Or?
Yeah.
It's an interesting detail.
No, but they were all friends who had come to our book event, and they bought the book to be supportive, but they were all saying, like, well, we read the book, and all of them were like, it was so touching, I cried so many times, it was so moving. And so I pitched the audiobook to them just to see, how it would go over, and they all texted me the next day, and they got it. So, I feel really like we achieved something here. We've made adults return to their youthful, younger selves, and I feel really happy about that. But yeah, if you're not a big reader, you can always just listen to it, I guess, or both.
It's a quick read, though. You should really.
It is a quick read. Yeah.
So one of the things I love about it, and I called it aspirational a couple of times because, like I said, I was queer in the 90s, did not come out because you could not. But in this story, it's more current, and one of your characters, I'm not getting into too many spoilers, does get to come out. And I'm curious why that was something you guys wanted to make sure to include in this, and how much it actually reflected your real life experience in that case.
So in junior high, nobody came out, but we did have queer friends. And I don't know that we would have used any language at that time to describe it, but you know when you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was really important to us to make sure that element got into the story. But I think the cool thing about not just fictionalizing the story, but also moving it up into current times. So the book is not set in the 90s, even though that's when we were in junior high. It's set in now. Sara and I got to ask ourselves big questions like, would we have been allowed a cell phone if we were 12 now? Would we have come out? Would we have started a band? And I believe, based on who my parents are, and based on the world that I live in, and based on who Sara and I turned out to be, that I do think we would have come out probably 5 or 6 years earlier than we did. I definitely think we would have been allowed a cell phone for sure. And we talk about Billie Eilish in the book, and so we would have definitely liked Billie Eilish for sure. So yeah, I think for us it was important to have the queer story in it, but we're about to start writing a new series for kids, books, chapter books, but we haven't announced it yet. So,
they won't say anything.
Yeah, don't tell
worry.
anybody.
They all promise.
But we've been brainstorming and talking a lot about how, like, it's really important to me that Sara and I continue to write and create content that has queer representation in it, but I don't want that to be the whole point of the story, because I don't know that that's what I would have been looking for when I was that age. I think I would have wanted to just see myself represented, but it not be a big deal. It's kind of like the bra thing. Like, if my mom had just tossed a bra into my room and we hadn't had to talk about it, I would have appreciated that more than being taken to Sears and made to stand in the dressing room and pick out which lacy bra I wanted for my, like, I think it would have been easier. So I think for us, we were trying to figure out how to include, like, LGBTQ content and left of center kind of ideas and concepts in a way that it isn't heavy-handed, because I think kids should be able to sort of figure it out for themselves and not be told. And I also think there's so much focus in the news and media on LGBTQ stuff, and it's kind of negative, and I don't necessarily think we undo that by making stories that make you feel othered. Yeah. So I also think there's like, I want to also admit that was clunky and inarticulate, but I just want to make sure that everything we create just feels like a story that anyone could relate to, and that you'll see enough representation of yourself, hopefully, that you'll feel a part of it without being very overtly, and now we have this, so I think we're just trying to figure that out. But when it comes to queer stuff, for me, I'm always just running it through my filter, and as a queer person, I loved when a queer storyline or queer person popped up in something, but it was quiet enough that no one would talk about it. Like in our family, we'd all be like, and then you just kind of move on, but it's like, okay, we exist, but it's not a conversation sometimes. I don't know. That's me.
It's actually one of the things that I found the most healing about writing high school or memoir was that I had never really grieved the fact that I had had to hold on to this secret for so many years. I mean, I knew that I was gay, like not just like different or, I'm confused about the feelings that I have. I really understood that I liked girls when I was 11. So up until that point, it had just been this weird layer texture in my life. Like, why does when my mom's friend Karen come over and they listen to Sinead O'Connor and I'm in my bedroom and I'm scared to go to the bathroom, what's that about? There was just like scenarios that felt like just too complicated for me. And I think if I had been straight, I might have felt that about like my mom's weird hot friend who was a guy or something, and it would have been like, oh, you've got a crush on, John. But instead it was Karen, and I was like, what the fuck's happening? I'm sorry I said Karen, that was just literally her name. But anyways, I don't know. Hold on, let me just gather my thoughts now that I'm thinking about Karen. Anyways, my natural instinct is to always go to a place of like comedy about these things. But when I was working on high school, I actually felt really sad thinking about how much of myself that did feel like such a significant part of me I was keeping really, really like deep in the basement of my brain and my body. And I was so lucky. And when I say lucky, I don't even think that's the right word, but I cannot imagine where I would be, who I would be, if I hadn't met the kids that we met in junior high. And because those kids were so cool and so affirming, and because one of them actually also was queer and I ended up getting to have a secret girlfriend, I got to express some of that. And I got to, even though it was done in secret and it was done interiorly and it was sometimes complicated and difficult,
something so funny about this moment happening
and
with the soundtrack.
I know.
Yeah.
This feels appropriately epic. Yeah.
Very epic.
Comic-Con, you guys.
Yeah.
It's just, they're scoring this right now, just in the room. It's
for another.
You're nailing it.
For another audiobook about Sara's telling.
I'm so glad that I had those experiences. But when I was writing high school, and I went back, okay, you can kill it on the bass, you guys. They got it. When I was working on high school and I started to really think about how much of myself I had to keep a secret, I felt grief. Like the word I used often was, I feel like I am grieving. And I think one of the joys of writing junior high was that I got to rewrite that story. I'm very proud of my coming out story. Those are the wounds that I have. That's who I am. I don't want to change it. But, here's little Sara. Sorry, I'm blowing it if you don't know, but little Sara gets to come out, and she gets to come out when in real time, when she is figuring herself out, with the compassion and the understanding of her friends and her parents and her sister. And that is not what I had. And I hope it's lightly aspirational. This is not like a big coming out story. It's just what I think might have happened if I was coming out now and I was a little kid. And I hope it's the kind of environment that my son gets to be a kid in. I don't know if he's gay. I mean, there's a picture of him dressed as a cowboy from a couple weeks ago that makes it seem like he's gay, but I don't know for sure yet. He's only one, but we can hope. But that's my biggest concern right now is I want to live in a world where it is easier and more normal and more like whatever to be crushing on Karen who's hanging out with your mom listening to Sinead O'Connor. That's the world that I want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things you guys have been able to do is like kind of live with yourself at a particular age in a way that most of us don't necessarily reflect on. Like when I think back about myself in high school or junior high, I cringe. But I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm feeling kinder towards that version of me. And I'm wondering if going through this has changed your relationship with 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old Tegan and Sara.
Yeah, I think the last handful of years we've been focused on the younger part of ourselves, and there's been a real healing for sure. I think one of our big takeaways from both these projects was that we should be a lot kinder to our younger selves. We should be more forgiving to the first relationships we've had, to the art we made when we were younger, and just in general have more compassion for young people. You're feeling so much at once and everything is so new, and I think we write young people off because we're like, they're young, but it's like, yeah, exactly, they're young, they have not been ruined and tainted by life. Like their ideas and their thoughts and their feelings, they're so genuine. It comes from such a good place. And I just I know at all of these ages, 12 through 17, if just one adult, not in a patronizing way, just one adult had come to me and been like, I think you're awesome. And I think you're going to do, great things, and keep your head up. Yeah. And it gets a lot easier as you get older, sort of. And, soon you'll pick the people you get to hang out with, and you'll pick the things you do all day long. So it's like tough, but like, I see you, and like, you're great, but like, we didn't talk like that then, and I think some people still don't. And I just think we should be like that to ourselves and to each other, and especially to young people, It's tough. Life's tough. Life's complicated. Mm-hmm.
True. One thing I think a lot of people who connect with your music would say is that you have always shared some sort of coded intimacy through your songwriting and your lyrics. And in recent years, as you've put out this memoir and now this amazing graphic novel and audiobook, it's much more explicit in that you're sharing and opening up with your audience and your fans. And I'm wondering if that's changed the dynamic with the audience for you guys in any ways.
I mean, that's interesting. I think there was definitely a conversation as we started to talk about high school specifically, that this was kind of like the unexplored story in our public space. Like, there's so much that Tegan and I are so transparent about, and it's a joy and a gift to be able to spend 25 years telling you about our breakups and our insecurity and our relationship. And, there's so much that we're just really comfortable talking about. It's not just because we're narcissists, but because it seems like you all want to have that conversation. And I hope it is a conversation. I think it's hard because we have these really awesome microphones, but, one of the gifts of 25 years of playing music is that we do feel like a community, and our breakups are kind of your breakups. You also went through these things. They're not totally unique. We can share these stories. But to go back into our before we became Tegan and Sara story, it was a choice. It was like, these friends, these are the people who knew us when we were just like garbage. I mean, we did not seem like we had a lot of potential. I mean, we really. The fact that they liked us, I'm just kidding. But it's like, they really knew us. They loved us when we were just like normal kids, like going to school, getting average grades, like, trying things out, saying dumb things. And like, I did have a moment of like, not because I don't want to share it with the public because there's something wrong with sharing it with the public, but like, oh my God, this is like these are like this is how we got made. This is our core life experience, and I did not want to disappoint anyone. I didn't want to like hurt anyone. I didn't want to make anybody mad. I didn't want it to feel like an exploitation. So, you know, it's probably the most complicated projects we've done in that way, where, you know, if you don't like one of our albums, it's kind of like, oh yeah, fine, whatever. But this is like, man, it's so personal, and it's personal, and it's made the reward of these projects all the more, you know, profound, actually, because it seems to be reaching people in a new way that, you know, our music can't. I mean, there's something so amazing about music, because you're like on stage and you're cool and there's lights and, you know, it's like, it's a persona and, you know, all of that. But this is just so, it's just so raw, and it's just so like stripped down of all of those things. And so far, you know, the response over the last few years to this retelling of our story, our origin story, it's been handled so tenderly, and I really appreciate everybody who's been part of that. So
Amazing. So we are going to open up the floor to questions in just a minute, but I want to ask, because I'm greedy. I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this is book 1 of 2?
yes.
Can you tease anything about book 2?
I'll just say this, like, it definitely gets even more fictionalized in book 2, but as Sarah's been using the word aspirational, I will say it's aspirational, but it's very inventive. You know, I think there's a lot more adult humor in it, even though it's still very much for young people. I think, like, I was recounting some of my favorite parts of the next book to friends at dinner the other night, but, you know.
With the adults?
With adults,
She's got adult friends, everyone.
Yeah.
She's got adult friends.
Well, I don't know. It's like a kid's book, but yeah, I talk about it with adults. But anyway, I was just recounting some of the things that we put in the book, and it's fun. We get to, I'll say this, we get to tease and tell a little bit more, actually, probably of like our adult story in the book, because of what happens to Tegan and Sara's music in book 2.
It's more of a look at the musical part of our journey. Like
we insert a lot of story/jokes that were inspired by what really happened to us when we were 17. So it's, you know, it kind of takes some of the things that shuttled us into adulthood, and we implant it into young Tegan and Sara's life, which I think is very funny. And the way Tilly draws some of the moments are just, yeah, it's so amazing.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, your readers are going to grow up with it, so it's okay to be a little more adult, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think I kind of looked at it like, at least for me, like, I just reread all of Judy Blume's books, and it's like, like, there's a lot in there that is not for kids. You know what I mean? So it's just about getting creative in the way that you tell the story. And so to me, everything we make, you know, is accessible to any age. I felt that way about our music when 6-year-olds are singing along to Walking with a Ghost or Back in Her Head. I mean, like, I don't think they understand the trauma Sara was going through when she wrote those songs.
Or maybe they do. I mean, now
Maybe
that I
they
have
do.
a child, I mean,
No, they don't. But
they
you know,
do it. But I just, they don't. No, I don't think they understand.
They
I don't
feel
know.
the emotion.
Well, I was going to say, like, the emotion is real. And, you know, when I look back at Tegan, okay, let's just quickly zoom back out for a second. Just 5 minutes ago, she's like, we just write kids off. We just write young people off. We just think to themselves.
Yeah, and right
Tegan's
before
like,
that,
she's like, they don't understand your music.
right before that, I also said we should be kinder to young people, and then Sara called us trash.
Hey, you two said you should be kinder to your younger selves. I'm just being honest that we were trash. But I just want to say, too, that, you know, like, I do think that I genuinely, okay, for example, when I was a little kid, I really loved that song Groovy Kind of Love by Phil Collins. And I really loved the song Patricia the Stripper by Chris de Burgh, if you don't know it. What on earth did I think I was listening to? I mean, Patricia the Stripper? I didn't even know what a stripper was. I just was like, she sounds fascinating. I wish I could meet her. I guess that's kind of a root, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Anyways, doesn't matter. Okay, sorry. God.
Amazing.